Good afternoon, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss about the cell biology. आज हम सेल बायोलॉजी के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे. तो बिफोर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द सेल बायोलॉजी वी नीड टू नो व्हाट इज सेल. सेल बायोलॉजी के बारे में डिस्कस करने से पहले हमको सेल बायोलॉजी क्या होता है वो पहले समझना चाहिए. तो सेल बायोलॉजी क्या होता है? It is the branch of science where dealing about cell and component of the cell. Means हम यहाँ पे साइंस एक ब्रांच है जो सेल के बारे में डिस्कस करता है, वही चैप्टर हम पढ़ने जा रहा हूँ. तो दिस सेल बायोलॉजी again divided into three chapters which are included in our NCERT books. These are first one is the cell, the unit of life. Second is cell cycle and cell division. Third is biomolecule. So आज हम one by one डिस्कस करेंगे. That means first one cell, the unit of life. तो write down first chapter. पहला चैप्टर स्टार्ट करने जा रहा हूँ. That is cell, the unit of life. Write down cell, the unit of cell, the unit of life. Before discussing about cell, the unit of life, cell, the unit of life के बारे में डिस्कस करने से पहले हमको सेल के बारे में जानना जरूरत है. तो व्हाट इज सेल? सेल क्या होता है? According to NCERT, cell it is the basic fundamental structural and functional unit of all living organisms. That means cell क्या होता है? It is basic fundamental structural and functional unit of all living organisms. That's why you can say all the organisms are composed of a cell. That's why we can say cell all the living organisms are composed of cell. All the living organisms are composed of cell. All the living organisms composed of cell. Some of the living organisms are composed of a unicellular. That means some of living organisms composed of unicellular, that means unicell. Some of the organisms are composed of unicell and some are multicellular. Some are multicellular. तो सेल क्या होता है वो हमने डिस्कस किया. तो who discovered cell? I don't know. So I need to know who discovered cell. The Robert Hooke first discovered cell. Who discovered cell? First, Robert Hooke discovered cell from bark. Bark, that means dead tissue. That means dead tissue. Robert Hooke discovered cell from bark. That means dead tissue. That means he discovered dead cell. And after that another scientist, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, another scientist, his name is Anton von Leeuwenhoek, discovered living cell. Anton von Leeuwenhoek discovered leaf cell. Anton von Leeuwenhoek discovered leaf cell. After discovering of this cell, later nucleus discovered by Robert Brown. The nucleus which is present inside the cell. If we consider it's a cell, then inside a cell have a nucleus which contain a chromosomal materials, that means chromosomes and DNA. So this nucleus is discovered by Robert Brown. Exam may ask question the who discovered leaf cells, and another question may ask who discovered dead cell. If exam asked who discovered cell, then we need to tick this. That means Anton von Leeuwenhoek. And another question may ask who discovered nucleus. This nucleus discovered by Robert Brown. That's all. Now, there are two scientists who experiment on cell. There are two scientists who experiment on the cell. One is called Sheridan, another is a Schwann. There are two scientists. One is Sheridan, another is a Schwann. Sheridan was a German botanist. Sheridan was a German botanist. And Schwann was a British zoologist. That means German botanist. From this word botanist, you can understand he experiment on plant cell. That means Sheridan experiment on plant cell, and he concluded he formulated a conclusion, and he formulated and conclusion. That is the one conclusion, that is all the plant are composed of cell and product of cell. After experiment done by Sheridan, he concluded a formula. They concluded a theory, that is all the plant are composed of cell and product of cell. After his, another scientist, Schwann, was a British zoologist. He experiment on animal cell, and he discovered plasma. He first discovered the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane. And after his experiment, he formulated his conclusion, that is after his experiment he formulated his conclusion, that is all the animals are composed of cell and product of that means श्वान की एक्सपेरिमेंट के बाद उसने क्या कंक्लूजन किया, उसने बोला था क्या एनिमल का जो सेल है, वो एनिमल का जो बॉडी है वो कंपोस्ट ऑफ किससे कंपोस्ट होता है, वो सेल से कंपोस्ट होता है, और वो सेल और प्रोडक्ट ऑफ सेल से कंपोस्ट होता है. आफ्टर दिस श्वान डन experiment on plant, and he saw the cell wall, and he saw cell wall, which is not present in animal cell, which are not present in animal cell. And finally, Sheridan and Schwann, finally the formulation or conclusion of these two scientists gives a together formulation theory. Finally, experiment done by Sheridan and Schwann provide a together theory, that is formulated theory together called cell theory. That means this cell theory states that all the organisms are composed of cells and product of cells. Sheridan and Schwann together formulated this theory that is called all the organisms are composed of a cell. That all the organisms means all the living organisms. All the living organisms are composed of cell and product of cell. But he does not explain about from where the cell comes. Another scientist that all the living organisms are produced from pre-existing cell. That means finally he modified and said all the living organisms are formed from pre-existing cells. And finally he gives a theory that is called modified cell theory, and in modified cell theory include these two theory. Including these two theory, he modified like that. That is called modified cell theory. I have already taught the cell theory. Cell theory applicable only for the living organisms. The virus is not a living organism. So virus is not a living organism. It's a solid particles. Virus is a solid particles. That's why virus is a exceptional of cell theory. Virus exception of cell theory. Because cell theory applicable only for the living organism. Virus is not a living, it's a solid. Outside the body and living inside the body. That's why virus is called semi-living organisms or semi-living particles. That's all about the cell and cell theory.